Hello, and welcome back to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are once again tackling the text tool. Last time we talked about the standard text frame. Today we're talking about the custom text frame, which is a bit of a rudimentary tool in Finale, but there's a couple interesting things you can do with it. So I'm just going to show you how and show you how to ignore the silliness of it and get to something practical. So if we go into the text menu, as we know from the last video, the standard frame will be checked by default, but we can also choose this custom frame, and this also has a shortcut Shift Command M in Finale, and I believe it's Shift Control M on a Windows, but let's just check that and see what we're dealing with. Now in this custom frame we get a different type of window. This is where we're going to sort of design the custom frame, and the custom frames will use shapes, and for that we're going to have to go into the dreaded shape designer, unfortunately. But before I do that, I do want to do something in the score that will help me out a little bit. I'm actually going to turn on the rulers, and that's Command R on the Mac. So I can kind of see the size of these texts that I'm dealing with. This actually becomes kind of important when you're dealing with the shapes, because the custom shapes will be fixed in size, so you do need to kind of match the size of the shape to the size of your text. And in this case, I'm going to deal with this one first. And if you kind of look at my ruler, it's kind of sitting at about 4.5 and close to 5.5. So it's about an inch wide. It's relatively square, so we can say it's about an inch by an inch. So if I design some sort of shape to encompass this text block, I have to accommodate for that 1 inch square worth of text. So just I think it's a good idea to check out these rulers just to see what the size is that you're dealing with. So we go into this little custom frame designer, and you'll see some things for showing and viewing and everything. You can set these however you need to for what you're doing. These are just viewable things. It will show you the handle, it will show you the shape if there is one, and it will show you the text. If you uncheck that, you'll see it go away. So this is just a little bit of a helper with the designer, and I'll talk about the distance from handle and the inset text a little bit in a second. But the first thing we need to do is choose a shape for this custom frame. So we press the select button, and we get the shape selection dialog box. And I can tell you off the bat that you should not use any of these shapes that exist in Finale, because none of them will work. Even these circles will not actually work. They're kind of opaque, and it won't actually do what you think it will. So for these custom frames, you most always have to create your own shape. So we're going to do that. We're going to go to Create, and we're going to get into the dreaded Shape Designer tool. And just like we turned on the rulers for the score, we want to turn on the rulers in the Shape Designer, because that will help us get this size right. So in the Shape Designer menu, just go to Show and make sure that you're showing the rulers. This will help us out a lot. You can now see the inch marker, so now I know that custom text frame text block that I created there is about an inch wide, so it'll go from the 1/2 inch to the 1/2 inch in this little ruler here. So that's going to be helpful. And what we want to do, or what I'm going to do right here, is I'm going to, there's many shapes that you can create, but for now I'm going to actually just create a circle. So I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. And to use this ellipse tool, you just double click and drag, or rather just click and drag, I think. And if you hold down the Shift key, that will ensure that it will be a perfect circle. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to create a circle that's about, you can see from my rulers, it's about 2 inches wide, right? So it looks like it's just about at the -1, just about at the 1. It's a little bit smaller than that, but that's okay. And we can move that to centered on the point of origin. This point of origin, interestingly, actually has no effect on these custom frames, so it doesn't need to be completely centered, but I'll just do that anyway. And we click OK. And so now we have a new shape that's a circle, so we're going to choose that shape, and we press select, and it'll appear that nothing happens. You can see that shape 145 is selected, but it doesn't appear. That's because we need to see the shape. And as soon as we do, we'll see that shape come into play in the custom frame designer here. But you'll see that the text is also sort of not in the appropriate place. So this is where we're going to need to use this handle. And the easiest thing to do is just drag that handle down a little bit so that we can get it kind of centered in the circle, just like that. And that's all there is to it. And then we just click OK, and now we have a circle around our text. Now, this is a little strange when you create these, because if you were to go back into this text frame, you'll see that we do get a bounded text frame. We see the double walls here. But first of all, they're not expandable. So these custom frames are fixed in size. There's nothing we can change about them. So if you need a larger circle, you literally need to make a second custom shape with the larger circle. The other thing is that the selection is really weird. Because of that thing we did with the handle, it moved the text down from where it normally would, which is what you're seeing me highlight here. So there's a lot of strange things going on. Like I said, this tool is rather rudimentary, but you can get results if you sort of follow this procedure that I showed you, and you'll get something, and there it is, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It also helps for things like this to make sure that your text is justified in the correct way. You can see that I've justified this text, center justified. If you left justify it, it's going to be weird, and your circle is going to be in a different place, and it's just not going to look quite right. So, also be careful with the justification. Now, as I mentioned, you can choose to see the border or not see the border. In this case, I'm showing the shape here. If I just uncheck that, you'll see that the circle will go away. Now, of course, this doesn't make any sense because what's the point of actually doing this? But there is an interesting application for doing this. And I'm going to set up something different on this second text block here, which you see I have this whole string of words. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to put these words in a triangle or a pyramid right here, so that we'll see an interesting layout of the text. And the first thing I want to do actually with this text block, I'm going to go ahead and change the justification to forced full, and I'm also going to change it to expand single word. Now, on an unbounded text block, this will have absolutely no effect, so nothing's going to happen right away, but you'll see the results of this in a second when I create this new shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and create a new custom frame. I'm going to actually create a new shape for this. Create. And instead of a circle, I'm going to create a triangle, and I'm just going to move my point of origin up a little bit so I can have some guidance with creating this shape. And this is the polygon tool here, and the way this works is you click, and then double click to close the polygon. Sort of a quick lesson here. And I'm going to use these positioning numbers to help me out here. So I know I need to do a video on the shape designer, which will happen at some point. I promise, I think. I'm going to try and find, if I can, the 0 point. Come on, there it is. And I'm going to click. And then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to try and find -2 in the vertical and -1.5. This is very difficult to do. And then click again. And then I'm going to go over here and try and find -2 and 1.5 in the horizontal. There we go, 1.5, -2. This will ensure that I have an equilateral triangle. And from here, I'm going to double click, and it will close the triangle to the origin point. So now I should have a perfectly equilateral triangle after much difficult work. And we click OK. And now we have a new shape here. I'm going to select that one. And you can see that I have this, this pyramid shape. And you'll also see that the text actually kind of fits nicely in there already, but we can make some adjustments because it's probably, it's too close to here. So what I'm going to do is actually just drag the text down a little bit so that it fits a little bit better into the pyramid, just like that. Again, it's a little bit tricky. You could actually probably turn up the size a little bit to see this better. There we go. That helps. And we get something that looks kind of like that. It's not perfect, but we'll get something that looks kind of okay. And we click OK, and we've just put this whole text into a pyramid. And you can see the result of the forced full justification, that it will kind of nicely follow the contours of the custom shape that you created. It doesn't quite go to the end. I guess I could have made it a little bit smaller, but this is the general idea. And again, if you wanted to, you could leave the triangle shape there, but also what we can do is just choose to not show the shape. And this will do something interesting for us where it will put the text in a pyramid type layout. without actually having to figure out how do I get this to work like this with a centered justification or something. Obviously, with the expand the single word with a forced full justification, this would be very difficult to do by eye. I think you get really good lines all the way down the slopes of the pyramid, as it were. So this is another interesting, if not, I don't know how useful this is to most of you, but it's an interesting way to use the custom frame. And there's all kinds of things that you can do with this custom frame. What if you can imagine a shape that you can put your text into? You can create that with the shape designer. It does get really wonky really quickly if you start making odd parallelograms and stuff like that, because it's not gonna. It's just the tool is too rudimentary to kind of figure out like how it's gonna follow like weird angles and jutting out rectangles and everything like that. So my advice is to really keep this very simple for things like triangles and circles and maybe like hexagons or something like that. But don't get too complicated with this, because it's going to get very very wonky very quickly. And then the other thing that you can do with these custom text frames, which I'm going to talk about in the next video, is that you can actually create perfect squares with them. If you watch the previous video on the standard frame, you'll know that when you put a rectangle around a text frame, the rectangle may or may not expand depending on whether or not you're using a bounded or unbounded text frame. And it can be very difficult to get a perfect square that way, because the text would have to kind of fit in a perfect square. But with these custom text frames, it is possible to get a perfect square that's fixed in size and have your text blocks go inside of that square. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the next video, because that's something that's related to the boxed number that you would see at the top of a musical theater score for the song number. I'm going to show you actually two different ways to do that in the next video, using a standard frame and using a custom frame. So that's coming up next. I think that'll be a really useful video for a lot of people. So anyway, that's all there is about the custom text frame. I mean, there really could be a lot more to this, but again, the usefulness is really limited here, so I didn't want to get too involved in this. But hopefully, maybe this will give you some ideas from some other things that you can do. And yeah, so that's all there is to it. Once again, thanks for watching. My name is Jason. This is Tackling the Text Tool. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon on the next video.